7 station was alive again. Warm light filled the halls and laughter returned. The human fleet had turned despair into safety. For the first time in weeks, people slept peacefully. But peace in deep space never lasted long. Ren was the first to notice it. He was in the control room, checking systems when one of the sensors flickered red. He thought it was a glitch until the next alert came. Then another. "Chief," he called. "There's something moving in the storm." "A lot of somethings." Mara hurried in, her face tense. "Show me." The screen filled with strange moving shapes, dark, uneven, and large. The computer could not identify them. The data was scrambled, but the rhythm of motion was clear. Dozens, maybe hundreds of small energy signatures were closing in. Tali entered quietly, holding a data pad. Could they be rocks or debris? Ren shook his head. "No, these are organized. They're flying in formation." Mara frowned. "That's not debris. That's a fleet." Outside, the stars faded behind a rising tide of red lights. The human ships had already noticed. On the bridge of the TNS Vigilant, Captain Ria Azul stood tall. Unidentified contacts approaching. Distance 12,000 kilometers. Shields up. Her second officer, Corin, scanned the readings. Could be pirate scavengers. The storm hides them. Azul's eyes narrowed. They picked the wrong system. She opened a channel to Veil 7. "Chief Mara, this is Captain Azul. Stay in defensive mode. Keep your power levels low so you don't draw attention. We'll handle this." Mara's voice came through steady, though fear rippled behind it. "Understood, Captain. The station stands by." Within minutes, the human warships shifted formation. Their engines howled again, not for rescue this time, but for warning. The sound was lower, sharper, like thunder rolling across the void. Dust clouds turned crimson as the fleet prepared for battle. Tali watched from the viewport beside Ren. "Why would anyone attack us now?" Ren replied quietly, "Because they think we're weak. They don't understand who's guarding us." The attackers came into view. Small raider ships, rough and rusted with uneven hulls and flashing red sensors. They had waited for weeks hiding inside the dust, waiting for Veil 7 to die. But now they saw the human fleet and decided to take their chances. On the Vigilant, Ria Azul's voice filled every comm channel. "This is the Terran Navy. You are approaching a protected station. Turn back or be fired upon." There was no reply. Instead, the raiders increased speed. Corin looked at the radar. "They're still coming, Captain." Azul's calm never changed. "Then we remind them what humanity sounds like when it means business." The human ships spread out. Their engines pulsed in unison, sending out shock waves through the storm. Instead of blinding light or heavy weapons, they used controlled bursts. Waves of sound, gravity, and light tuned together. The storm itself became a weapon. The first wave of raiders hit the moving currents and spun out of control, colliding with each other. Others fired blindly, but the dust twisted their shots into harmless bursts. From Veil 7's viewport, the scene looked like a storm inside a storm. Bright flashes, glowing rings, and shadows moving with impossible grace. Ren whispered, "They're not even firing missiles. They're using the storm itself." Tali's voice was soft with awe. They turned chaos into defense. But then the storm shifted again. A new signal appeared, stronger, deeper. One massive ship entered from the far side of the dust cloud. It was huge, built from scavenged parts, its hull covered in red lights like glowing scars. Mara gripped the edge of the console. "What is that?" Ren's face turned pale. "The Raider flagship." On the Vigilant, alarms blared. The enemy ship locked its weapons on the station. Azul's voice rang out. "All ships form the wall. We can't let them reach Veil 7. The human warships moved in perfect harmony, forming a protective shield between the station and the enemy. Their engines flared again in the old human rhythm. The howl, the void trembled. The Raider flagship fired. Streams of energy hit the protective field created by the Terran ships. The impact was violent. Lights flickered on Veil 7, the wall shook. "Shields at 70%, Corin shouted. "We can't hold that long." Azul didn't blink. "We hold as long as it takes." She looked at the image of the station on her screen, a small, fragile spark of life in the darkness. She thought of the people there, the laughter that had returned. They survived the storm. They will not die on my watch. Mara turned to Tali. "Get to the Garden Dome. If we lose power, that's where the children will be safest." Tali hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll stay here," Mara said firmly. Someone has to guide them if the systems go down. Ren stood by his console. I'll stay too. I can boost the signal between their ships. Mara smiled faintly. You're too stubborn for your own good. Ren grinned. I learned that from you. Outside, the fight raged. The Raider flagship launched drones, small fast machines that swarmed toward the Terran fleet. The humans responded with precision, each ship releasing flares of light that confused the drone's sensors, turning them against each other. Explosions flickered like stars. Still, the enemy ship pressed forward. Captain, Corrin said, if they fire again, the station could be hit. Azul stared at the storm map. Then we take the hit first, she ordered. All power to the front shields. Prepare for ramming range. The crew froze for a heartbeat, then obeyed. They trusted her. That was enough. Bale 7 shook as the massive enemy weapon charged. A line of bright energy gathered at its center. Tali and the others in the garden dome held each other as the light grew. Then came the sound, the deep rising howl of the Terran fleet. It started as a single note, then multiplied as every human ship joined in. The storm around them began to twist and roar, forming a spiral that caught the enemy's energy blast before it could reach the station. The blast split, scattering into harmless streams of blue light. Cheers erupted inside Vale 7. Ren slammed his fist on the console. They did it. They turned the shot. Mara's eyes shone with tears. Unbelievable, but the effort drained the fleet's power. The vigilance lights dimmed. Azul steadied herself as her ship groaned. Report. Engines overheated, Corrin said. We've got nothing left to push the storm. Azul looked at the map. The Raider flagship was still moving. Slowly, but moving. It could still ram the station. She made her choice quietly. Send command to the Hammerfall. Tell them to pull back to safe range. We'll stop the flagship ourselves. Corrin's eyes widened. Captain, she raised a hand. No time. The station comes first. From the viewport of Vale 7, everyone saw it. The Vigilant glowed brighter than the others, moving straight toward the massive Raider ship. Its engines howled at full power, cutting through the dust like fire through snow. Tali whispered, she's going to collide. Ren's throat tightened. She's saving us. The Vigilant rammed the flagship head-on. There was no explosion, no chaos, just a burst of light that spread through the dust like dawn breaking. The enemy ship shattered apart, its red lights fading to black. Silence returned. Then, through the calm, Captain Azul's calm voice came one last time. Vale 7, the storm is yours now. Live well, static followed. Then nothing. For a long time, no one spoke. The remaining human ships moved slowly, forming a quiet circle around the station. They began rescue scans, searching for any sign of the Vigilant. Hours passed before a message came through. A small beacon, floating in the dust, still sending the old Terran signal. 3 short beeps and 1 long. Hold fast. Mara closed her eyes. She made sure we'd remember. Days later, when the skies cleared, Vale 7 stood brighter than ever. The humans helped rebuild every system. The story of the howl spread through the galaxy, the tale of the fleet that came from the void and sang the storm away. Tali often stood by the viewport, listening to recordings of the howl. She would smile and whisper, they came when no one else did. Mara placed her hand on the glass beside her. And they'll come again whenever someone calls for help. Far out in the endless dark, a faint sound still echoed through the stars. The deep, proud song of human engines howling from the void. Glowed along the floors. The people who had almost lost hope now moved with energy, whispering the same words over and over. The humans came. Chief Mara stood in the control room beside the Kestran scientist, Tully. The big screen showed 5 massive human warships holding position just outside the storm's thickest layer. Their engines gave off a deep, steady sound, not a roar but a heartbeat. Ren, the young technician, adjusted the scanners. They're stabilizing the magnetic field around us, he said. I don't know how they're doing it, but readings show the pressure is dropping. The dust is parting, Mara smiled. Humans built these ships to fight through chaos. Storms like this don't scare them. Tali's eyes were wide with awe. They move like they can feel the storm breathe. Maybe they can, Mara said quietly. They listen better than most. Outside the station, the fleet worked like one body. Captain Ria Azul stood on the bridge of the lead ship, TNS Vigilant, her hands clasped behind her back. The blue light of the storm reflected across her calm face. "Maintain formation," she ordered. "All ships in sync. Keep the drives in howl mode. Let the dust dance around us," her pilot nodded. "We're holding steady, Captain." "Good," Ria replied. "Now let's bring them home." On Vale 7, everyone felt the change. The deck stopped shaking. The power lines no longer flickered. A soft vibration replaced the storm's roar, the steady hum of the warships pushing the storm away. Ren watched the monitors and frowned slightly. "Chief, they're taking a lot of stress on their outer hulls. They're protecting us, but it's hitting them hard." Mara's jaw tightened. They knew the risk. Jaro, the elderly miner, stepped forward. "Why would they risk their ships for a small station like ours?" Mara looked out the viewport, her eyes reflecting the faint lights of the human fleet. "Because that's what humans do. They protect first, ask questions later." Tali smiled softly. "You make it sound like a song." "It is a song," Mara said. "One made of steel and heartbeats." Hours passed. The human fleet continued its careful work, creating a tunnel through the storm so supply shuttles could pass later. The void outside looked like a sea parting under invisible hands. Inside TNS Vigilant, the control team worked with quiet focus. The engines glowed hot, and the metal walls trembled under the strain. Lieutenant Corrin called out, "Hull temperature rising to 1300 degrees, Captain. We can't hold this power much longer." Ria Azul kept her eyes on the storm map. "We hold until they're clear. Vale 7 is still too deep. Prepare stabilizers. Route auxiliary power from our reserves." "But Captain," Corrin said, "that will drop our own shields to 40%. Ria turned her head slightly, her expression firm but calm. "If we lose our shields, we rebuild. If Vale 7 loses pressure, people die." "Do it," the crew obeyed without hesitation. That was the human way. They didn't measure effort by safety. They measured it by purpose. Back on Vale 7, Ren's console lit up. "Chief, their power just dropped by 30%. Mara's heart skipped. "They're giving us their power." Tali looked shocked. "They're draining themselves for us?" "Yes," Mara said softly. "They're buying us life with their strength." Outside, the human ships shone brighter, forming a ring of light. The dust swirled around them like a living storm, but the ring held. The howl of their engines filled the void, echoing across the empty dark. For a moment, everyone on the station stood still, listening to that sound. It was not a sound of anger or war. It was courage made into music. Children pressed their hands to the cold windows, smiling. Elders closed their eyes and prayed. Even those who had doubted the humans now whispered thanks. A message came through, clear and strong. "This is Captain Ria Azul to Vale 7, said the voice. "You're safe. We've created a stable corridor. Begin releasing waste heat slowly. Prepare for docking operations," Ren grinned. "They did it!" Mara pressed the comm. "Vale 7 to Vigilant. Captain Azul, you've saved us. How can we ever repay this?" The voice came back warm and simple. "Just survive, Chief. That's all the thanks we need." The first human shuttle broke through the mist an hour later. It was small, silver, and shaped like a hawk with glowing wings. As it docked, the airlocks hissed and the doors opened to reveal a group of armored humans. Their suits were scratched and dirty, but their faces carried calm smiles. "Permission to come aboard," said one of them, saluting Mara. "Lieutenant Jared Holt, Terran Navy." "Permission granted," Mara said, shaking his hand. "You have no idea what this means to us." Jared smiled. "We heard your silence. That was enough to come." Behind him, the rest of his team unloaded crates, emergency rations, medical kits, power cells. They moved quickly but gently, helping the alien workers repair systems. Tali approached one of the crates and ran her fingers over the human markings. "You brought supplies through that storm?" Jared chuckled. "Storms are just weather, ma'am. You learn to walk through them." Hours later, the command room was brighter. The air smelled fresh again. Generators purred smoothly. People moved through the halls laughing, sharing warm food for the first time in weeks. Mara and Tali stood together, watching through the viewport. The human warships were still holding formation, glowing faintly against the fading dust. "They haven't left," Tali said. "No," Mara replied. "They'll stay until the storm is fully gone." Ren joined them. "Chief, I just spoke with the human engineer on the shuttle. They said they'll tune the field generators to prevent this from happening again." Tali looked surprised. They're giving us their technology? Mara smiled. Humans share more than they keep. That's why they're different. Far outside on the bridge of TNS Vigilant, Captain Azul looked at the calm forming in the dust cloud. Her crew was tired, their faces pale from long hours. But the readings were clear. Veil 7 was safe. A status? She asked quietly. All systems stable. Corridor open. Rescue shuttles docked successfully, her officer reported. Azul nodded. Good, begin cooldown sequence. Let the storm rest. The ship's engines lowered their hum, the howl fading into a deep whisper. The blue dust slowed and then drifted peacefully like a sea after a storm. Azul turned to the viewport. Not bad for a week's work, she said softly. On Veil 7, Mara made a final announcement. All residents, the Terran fleet has secured our system. Supplies are restored. Power is stable. Today we stand because they came for us. Cheers filled the station. For the first time in weeks, laughter echoed through every corridor. Tali smiled as she watched children running past her. Your people, she said to Mara. They don't just bring weapons. They bring hope, Mara nodded. That's the thing about humans, Tali. We don't just fight storms, we light them up. Outside, the 5 human warships stood silent, surrounded by stars breaking through the thinning clouds. Their hulls shone with faint light, and for everyone watching, they were not just ships. They were a promise that when the galaxy grows dark, someone, somewhere, will come howling from the void to bring the light again. Veil Station 7 floated at the far edge of the Orion Drift, a lonely trade outpost surrounded by endless dark clouds. For weeks, the dust storm had hidden every star. The station's hull lights were dimmed to save power, and the corridors felt cold and quiet. Everyone believed the Council's supply ships had forgotten them. Chief Mara stood on the bridge looking at the blank screens. The static hiss never stopped. Still nothing? She asked softly. Nothing, Chief, replied Ren, the young human technician. All channels dead. The dust eats every signal. Behind them, Tali, a gray-skinned Kestran scientist, watched in silence. Her people were peaceful artists, not soldiers. She had come to study human farming systems, but now she found herself trapped in the middle of nowhere, with humans who refused to give up. Mara sighed. If the Council won't come, we'll hold. We always do. In the mess hall, food was growing short. The hydroponic gardens still worked, but their lights flickered. The crew shared tiny portions and told jokes to keep spirits alive. Children played in slow motion, their laughter soft under the hum of failing engines. Tali joined Mara by the viewport. Together they watched the swirling blue dust outside. It feels alive, Tali whispered. Like it's watching. Mara gave a tired smile. The galaxy's always watching. It just doesn't always care. But humans, you still hope? That's what we do best, Mara said. Hope even when no one's listening. Days passed. On the 7th night, the power dropped again. Ren stayed awake, rewiring circuits with frozen fingers. He refused to rest. He had grown up hearing stories about old Earth fleets. Giant ships that could sail through storms and bring light to dark systems. He didn't believe those stories much anymore. Until that night. At 0317 station time, a faint pulse appeared on the radar. Just one small blip in the static. Ren blinked and leaned closer. No way. He checked the readings again. It wasn't random noise. It repeated. 3 short bursts, 1 long. He ran to Mara. Chief, I found something. She rushed to the console, heart pounding. Show me. Ren replayed the signal. Beep, 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 beep. The pattern repeated every 20 seconds. That's old human distress code, Mara said, eyes wide. It means hold fast, someone's out there. Tali's voice trembled. A council ship? Ren shook his head. No, that's a Terran Navy code, pre-council. Nobody uses that anymore. The crew gathered in the command room. Some hoped, others feared it was just ghost data. Mara made her voice calm. We keep quiet. Don't send a reply yet, just listen. They waited. Minutes turned into an hour. Then another pulse, stronger this time with new harmonics. The computer translated fragments. Human Warship Group Sigma. Approaching. A whisper spread through the station. Humans are coming. Jaro, an elderly alien miner, shook his head. Impossible. No fleet would fly through this dust. Ren smiled faintly. You don't know human pilots. Outside, invisible to the naked eye, the storm began to change. The blue mist rippled like waves disturbed by distant thunder. Deep within the void, something howled, a sound between an engine roar and a living cry. It wasn't wind. It was propulsion, human propulsion. Mara felt the vibration through the deck plates. They're cutting a lane through the storm. How? Tali asked, amazed. Old trick, Mara said softly. We call it the howl, tuned drives that sing against charged particles. They make the storm dance out of the way. Soon, faint lights appeared. 5, then 10. Ghostly glows in the swirling dark. The first ship broke through the clouds like a shadow-given shape. Its hull was scarred and blackened, edges lined with glowing blue thrusters. Across its side were the letters TNS Vigilant. Then came more: TNS Hammerfall, TNS Arcadia, TNS Valkyrie. Each one howled as it emerged, their engines forming a strange harmony that rattled the storm itself. Vale 7 shook as the ships took orbit around it. Every speaker came alive with static, then a calm human voice. This is Captain Ria Azul of the Terran Navy. Vale 7, hold position. We see you. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then Mara pressed the comm. Her voice broke. Vale 7 here. We thought no one was coming. Ria Azul's voice carried a smile. We heard your silence. That was loud enough. Tali stared in wonder. How did they even find us? They listened, Mara whispered. Humans always listen. The entire station watched through viewports as the warships spread out like guardians. Their hulls glowed with red-blue light. They moved slowly, precise, creating a pocket of calm around Vale 7. Dust particles danced away from them, forming a corridor of clear space. On the bridge of the Vigilant, Captain Azul stood with her hands behind her back. She was tall, her face lined with age and experience. Begin containment sequence, she said. Keep thrust minimal. We're not saving a station by breaking it. Her second officer grinned. Never thought we'd fly through a storm like this again. Azul smiled faintly. We're Terrans. We don't wait for orders when we arrive. Back on Vale 7, Ren monitored the power grids. Readouts changed from yellow to green. The storm interference dropped by 42% in under a minute. Lights brightened. Air filters whirred back to full strength. Jarrow murmured, They make it look easy. Mara turned to him. It's never easy. They just hide the fear better. In the gardens, Tali knelt beside the tomato plants. They glowed again under steady lamps. She whispered, They came through the storm. For us. Through the hull, a new sound filled the air. 3 tones in rhythm. Every device repeated it like a heartbeat. We are here. Hold fast. Children began to hum along. Even the elders smiled for the first time in days. Mara stood by the viewport, watching the silhouettes of the warships. Tell me, Ren, she said softly, what kind of people fly through storms when the council says it's too dangerous? Ren looked at her proudly. Humans. The storm roared again outside, but now its voice sounded weaker, tamed by the chorus of human engines. Captain Azul listened to the steady reports from her fleet. The dust pattern was stabilizing. She allowed herself one quiet laugh. Transmit to all ships, she ordered. Phase 2, prepare to anchor Vale 7. Her pilot nodded. They'll sing louder now. Azul shook her head. Not louder, truer. Outside, the human warships aligned in perfect geometry. Their drives pulsed in harmony, creating rings of light that shimmered through the clouds. It was not a violent rescue, it was a song, a balance between force and care. The dust parted further, revealing the faint glow of distant stars. Vale 7 was no longer alone. Inside the station, Mara's voice carried over every speaker. To the human ships in the storm, Vale 7 thanks you. We see your light, the reply came at once, a pattern that even a child could understand. 3 pulses, a pause, then one long tone, the universal human signature for safe. Ren leaned back in his chair, exhausted but smiling. They made it. We're saved. Tali turned to the viewport again. Not just saved, she whispered. Reminded that humans never leave anyone behind. Outside, the human fleet howled softly to the void, not in anger but in promise.